everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Home Media Reviews. This is a special one because it's our mid-season finale of Season 6. This is part 2 of our Tarantino double feature extravaganza. This episode is on True Romance. Let's not waste any time, let's jump right into the history of True Romance. So True Romance hit theaters on September 10th, 1993, so a year after Reservoir Dogs hit theaters. As I said last week, this movie was not directed by Quentin Tarantino, it was written by him. And I don't have a lot of history to talk about here because I just watched this movie for the first time for this review. Spoiler alert for later on in this history section and the close-up section, but I own the Arrow video Blu-ray of this, and I watched that copy. It looked fantastic. I had heard about True Romance primarily from one of the co-hosts of Now Playing Podcast, Arnie Carvalho, back when they were doing the Quentin Tarantino retrospective series, I believe back in 2015 leading up to The Hateful Eight. Arnie sang this movie's praises in like every single Quentin Tarantino review that I got to hear. Do I happen to agree with Arnie's opinion and a lot of people's opinions online? Stay tuned and find out. On a budget of $12.5 million, True Romance made, drumroll please, $12.6 million. This movie was not a major hit at the box office. It is what some people would classify as a box office bomb, which is really quite a shame considering the movie is pretty good in my opinion. It did make a decent profit from home video sales, however. Speaking of that, True Romance hit VHS on September 12th, 1994. So a year and 2 days later from its theatrical release. I find that funny. Here's something that we have to talk about moving forward. There are two cuts of True Romance. There's the theatrical cut and the unrated director's cut. There's not a lot of difference. There's like 2 minutes of footage cut out from the theatrical cut, and the unrated cut is a little bit more violent. The director's cut was made available through the wide release of this tape. However, there was a rental exclusive VHS that contained the theatrical cut. I don't know if I have a picture of this. I'll look for one very thoroughly on Google after I get done with this audio section, but this is what the wikis and various sources that I have looked at have told me. That does make sense for the time. You would want the rental version of your movie to be the R-rated theatrical cut, I guess, and then the unrated cut you could buy in stores. That does kind of make sense to me. There was also a laser disc of True Romance that came out on September 12th, 1994. As far as theatrical or director's cut, I believe this one only had the director's cut on it. Don't quote me on that, though. I couldn't find anything that said otherwise. 3 years later, on September 30th, 1997, the DVD of True Romance came out, and this one only included the director's cut. From this point forward, we are only talking about the director's cut. The theatrical cut is stuck on the rental exclusive VHS for a very long time. I don't know what it is about September, but True Romance loves this month. September 24th, 2002 brings us a 2-disc special edition DVD set. And this one was actually marketed as having the director's cut on it. Although the previous release also had the director's cut, but it wasn't like flashy, like saying, hey, this is the director's cut. This one is like, hey, look, we've got a disc full of bonus features, and you get the unrated version of True Romance. Ooh. Thank God we're finally out of September. On May 15th, 2007, the single disc version of True Romance was reprinted and put back out onto store shelves. The poster art, I assume, hadn't been changed. Doesn't say anything about any other features here in my notes. So we'll move on to May 26th, 2009, when True Romance hit Blu-ray for the very first time. Still includes that really generic poster of Christian Slater holding a gun and Patricia Arquette standing behind him. 3 years later, on March 13th, 2012, True Romance was included in a Blu-ray 2-pack with Natural Born Killers. Another movie that was written by Tarantino but wasn't directed by him. That was Oliver Stone who directed Natural Born Killers. I haven't seen that one either. I haven't seen a lot of Tarantino's written work. I've seen all of his directorial stuff, well, except for Death Proof, but I plan on fixing that soon. Haven't seen Natural Born Killers, haven't seen anything from Four Rooms. Again, haven't seen a lot of his written stuff, unfortunately. Later on in 2012, on November 13th, a Warner triple feature Blu-ray set came out. This included True Romance, American History X, and A History of Violence. What do these have to do with True Romance? Was this literally Warner Brothers saying, hey, we have all these discs that we made for these movies, why don't we just make a random 3-pack? To be fair, though, I haven't seen either of those other two movies. The one fact I have about A History of Violence is it was the last movie ever released on VHS, and then American History X, isn't Edward Norton like a Nazi or something? The Blu-ray then got reprinted 6 years later on September 11th, 2018. I don't know if anything was changed about it. Could have had some new special features. The poster art could have changed, although I'm betting it probably didn't. However, we finally get to the definitive release for True Romance. The Arrow Video Limited Edition 4K and Blu-ray sets. These came out on June 28th, 2022. If you don't know anything about Arrow, they are a very prestigious boutique label, sort of like Criterion or Kino Lorber, and they always put out their movies with a lot of physical extras. For one thing, if you buy their movies at launch, you get a nice hard outer box slipcase type deal. It makes these movies feel more premium, in my opinion. You also got a bunch of posters included with the True Romance Blu-ray set. There was no combo pack for these sets. You either got just the 4K or just the Blu-ray. This release is also significant because this is the first time that the theatrical cut has ever been made available outside of that rental exclusive VHS tape. So from 1994 all the way to 2022, the only cut of this movie that you could watch was the director's cut. But now, thanks to Arrow Video, you can finally see the theatrical cut. Not only did you get these two limited edition sets, there were also two steelbooks put out by Arrow Video. They each had different artwork. There's one with just Patricia Arquette on the front, and then there's one featuring Christopher Walken and a couple of the other actors. I don't know if both of these were combo packs or not. I think one of them was. The other one may have just been a Blu-ray or a 4K. I don't really know off the top of my head. But that's already a lot of releases for True Romance. A lot of ways to actually pick this movie up from Arrow Video. And another cool thing that Arrow does is, after their films have been available on the market for like maybe 9 months to a year, they then reissue them without the outer box and the physical posters and stuff. But you can still get the movies, either with a slipcover or without. I didn't see anything about that on Blu-ray.com, which is primarily where I get my information for these history sections, so I assume they haven't done that yet with True Romance, which is crazy considering it's been 2 years since this movie hit the market, and I can still go to my Barnes & Noble right now and find a couple copies of the Blu-ray with the hardbox slipcase and the posters and everything, brand new in the package. That's not where I found mine, though. I got mine from Half Price Books, and I did get it for half price. I got it for $20. These Blu-ray sets usually go for about $40 to $50 if you buy them brand new from Arrow or from somewhere like Barnes & Noble. One of my best finds at Half Price Books, actually. I was really happy about that. But that brings us to the end of the history section for True Romance. Let's go ahead and move right along to the close-up. Alrighty everyone, here's your close-up look at True Romance. We're looking at the best available version of this movie that's out on the market, the Arrow Video Blu-ray release. Can't say the 4K because I don't have the 4K. I haven't seen it on 4K, but it looks really good on Blu-ray. You've got a Tony Scott film up there at the top, True Romance. There's your cast list down there, absolutely stacked with celebrities. There's Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, and some nice stylized artwork there. I love the little 10-cent piece up there. Like, this is an old, like, pulp magazine or a comic book or something. And then you've got the Arrow video logo down there at the bottom, along with the color bars that Arrow is famous for. That's part of its logo. I absolutely love this poster. It's so much better than the poster that they've been using on the Blu-rays and the DVDs up until this point. I'm glad that they went back and updated this artwork. It looks so good. On the spine, Arrow logo again, True Romance, nothing down there on the bottom. And the back, this, I presume, had a J card on it at some point, but I bought this used, so I don't have the J card, unfortunately. Stealing, cheating, killing, who says romance is dead? And then we've got a blurb about the movie. It's also a continuation of the front poster art with the, like, crumpled edges and such around here, and then we've got some copyright information down there at the bottom. This is a hard box slipcase here, so it's very high quality feeling. We'll take a look at the physical stuff first before we look at the actual Blu-ray release. So to begin, we have a poster, which is the poster of this here. It's a bit big, so it's going to be kind of hard to show off here. There's one side of the poster, and if you flip it over, you get another poster, which is one similar to the theatrical poster, but not exactly the theatrical one. Physical thing here is a little book. So there's that poster from the DVD and the Blu-ray rearing its ugly head again. We take a look inside. Here's your contents here. It's a book of essays written by several people. I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can pause and read them there, and then you have some facts about the restoration of the movie on page 58. So I'm going to skip all the way to that. So here are the facts about the restoration. You can pause and read that for yourself if you're interested, and then you've also got some production credits and some special thanks back there. This is giving Criterion vibes. I really like these. Oh, you've also got some artwork on the back there too. I really like these booklets that Arrow does that gives you some essays written about the movie and the directors and whatnot. As I said, it's giving Criterion vibes, but this is way more premium feeling because it's like a book. It's got like almost 60 pages in it, so that's really cool to see that there. And then here is the Blu-ray case. The other side of that poster there is this poster here. Nice artwork there, the spine, True Romance, and then a photo taken from the front. And the back recycles the blurb as well as that fun line, and then breaks down your contents of the Blu-ray with stuff about the restoration and your bonus contents. And then you've got tech specs and cast and crew down there at the bottom. And if we open it up, some more physical goodies. We'll take a look at that in a minute. There's your disc. It's a meshing of their tattoos that the characters get in the movie. And then you'll notice that this is actually double-sided. If you wanted to display this case with the artwork from the slipcover, you can. I like mine to be a little bit different, though, so I chose the other poster there to display mine. But it is cool that you get two options. And your physical goodies include some postcards from various scenes in the movie. So that's fun. And for what it's worth, there's also some artwork on the back of the postcards as well. So no matter what my opinion on True Romance winds up being, this is one of the best pieces of physical media that I own in my collection. Arrow Video does such a great job with these limited edition sets that they put out. That wraps up your close-up. Let's go ahead and move right along to the menu tour. Well, folks, this is where I would show you the menu for True Romance, but we've hit a bit of a snag. So in the past, I have said that Blu-ray discs are, for the most part, region-free, meaning you can play them in any Blu-ray player from any region, whether that be region A, B, C, however many regions there are. Unfortunately, I guess for Arrow Video, they region lock their Blu-rays. I didn't notice this until I took this out of the package, but look at that down there. That's not a US rating. That is a foreign rating. If I was to guess, probably a UK rating or something like that. I can't play this disc here in either my PS4 or my Xbox One. You see here that my PS4 recognizes that this is indeed True Romance. However, if I click on this, it will show me a message saying that this Blu-ray is not compatible with your device's region code, which tells me this disc is region locked, which also tells me that perhaps the reason this wound up in half-price books was because somebody bought this, probably used off of eBay or maybe even Amazon, and couldn't play it in their Blu-ray player here in the US, because region locking is stupid. It's a good thing I ripped this movie and watched my ripped copy for this review. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to actually watch the movie, because region coding is so stupid. I cannot stand region coding. It just... Arrow Video, I praise you all throughout this home media review, and especially during the end. But man, you guys really, really messed up with this one. I cannot stand region coding. For what it's worth, though, I can read you all what the bonus features are here. There's a audio commentary with Quentin Tarantino, an audio commentary by Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, an audio commentary by critic Tim Lucas, select scene commentaries by stars Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Brad Pitt, and Michael Rappaport. There's a new interview with costume designer Susan Becker, a new interview with co-editor Michael Tronick, a new interview with co-composers Mark Mancina and John Van Tongeren, new interview with Larry Taylor, the author of Tony Scott, a filmmaker on fire, a new interview with Daniel Storm, co-founder of the annual True Romance Fest and owner of the original Cadillac, deleted scenes with optional commentary by Tony Scott, and an alternate ending with optional commentaries by Scott and Quentin Tarantino. You also get a electronic press kit featurette, some behind the scenes footage, and a bunch of trailers and TV spots. So this release is loaded with bonus features. I just wish that I could actually show them to you as opposed to my PS4 menu. You guys want to see what I've been playing on it? Fortnite. Haven't played Uncharted yet, or Modern Warfare, or God of War, or Squadrons. I've played this, though. It's not good. I'm sure some people are yelling at me right now. Garrett, why don't you just put this into your computer? That's how you've been doing the menu tours for the Thomas & Friends UK stuff, right? You're correct, viewer. Unfortunately, Windows doesn't have a Blu-ray player app that, actually works well. There are apps out there that will play Blu-rays on Windows, but most of them cost money, and I don't want to pay for that. So unfortunately, we don't get a menu tour this time around, and this is a very rude awakening for me. I probably should have checked the rating a little bit closer before I bought this release, or at least done a little bit more research into does Arrow region lock things. That wraps up your not menu tour. Let's go ahead and head on back and answer the 5 main questions as always. Alright, so we're back from the close-up. Now it's time to answer the 5 main questions as always. Number 1, where can you pick this product up? If you go to your local Barnes & Noble, you actually may be able to still find a couple copies of this. If your Barnes & Noble is anything like one of my Barnes & Nobles, one of them has completely transitioned away from physical media. They've downgraded their store space. They've really been pushing into, the physical books, of course, which makes sense because they're booksellers. That's how they started. But their physical media section is literally just a rack, and you get maybe 1 or 2 titles. However, the other Barnes & Noble, the one that's closer to me actually, that one still has a pretty vast physical media section. They even have a Criterion section that's made just for Criterion Blu-rays, which makes for easy shopping during the Criterion half-off sales. They even just recently brought out a steelbook section. Now, Barnes & Noble sells steelbooks for a very huge premium, but it's nice to see that they're actually committing to physical media. They also have a little bit of an Arrow video section, especially now that the 50% off Arrow sale is still going on at the time of recording this video. It could be over by the time it comes out. I actually just recently went to Barnes & Noble and picked up another Arrow video title. Has anyone heard of My Stepmom is an Alien? It looked funny, and it was $20, so... Previously, I picked up the Conan Chronicles 2-pack with Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. That one had the outer box, too, so that was really nice. This isn't about Conan, Garrett. This is about true romance. And can you still pick it up today? Kind of. Number 2, is this product still being printed nowadays? I hesitate to say yes on this just because I found a couple copies at my Barnes & Noble, because those are more than likely just excess stock. Arrow produced a lot of copies of True Romance on all of the various formats. They produced a crap ton of steelbooks, a crap ton of the Blu-rays with the hardbox shell. Not a lot of the 4K, though. The 4K was relatively limited, but the Blu-ray is abundant. I really want to say yes, but it's been 2 years since this came out, so I think I have to say no. I'm sorry. Number 3, should you pick this product up? The opening scene of True Romance feels very Reservoir Dogs. We're at the pop music and the candid conversation between Christian Slater and that random girl at the bar. If I didn't know that True Romance was directed by Tony Scott, I may have thought that this was Tarantino's lost 10th movie or something. At least in this first scene. As we move on throughout the movie, it strays away from Tarantino's style. You can tell he did not direct this movie. Christian Slater plays lovingly awkward very well throughout the movie. You can tell he has no idea how to carry himself in public outside of a movie theater, and when Patricia Arquette dumps popcorn on him, he genuinely has no idea how to react to it. And I really like Christian Slater throughout the movie. I related to him a lot. I'm kind of awkward too. I'm sure a lot of people my age who watch True Romance would relate to Christian Slater here. Arquette and Slater have genuine chemistry when they start talking outside of the movie theater. The diner scene continues to build on that chemistry and continuously develop their relationship. I have my issues with their relationship later on in the movie, but for now, at the start of this, it feels very realistic. You want to see what Spider-Man number 1 looks like? Why is Christian Slater playing a more awkward version of myself? That scene at the comic book store made me think of how awkward and nervous I was when I showed Hope my room for the first time. It hasn't changed much since then. It's still like my own version circus in here, but I was genuinely frightened to see how she would react to, like, oh, you own all this. And it's only gotten worse since I met her, which makes me think that she's the right one for me. It's a really well done scene when Arquette comes clean as a call girl hired by Slater's boss to get him laid. The way Slater reacts is hilarious, and the moment that they share after is genuinely sweet. However, here's where my problems with their relationship come in. What the hell are they doing getting married the day after they just met? That's a crazy first step, but these kids just seem so in love after only knowing each other for one day. You have to give the movie that conceit, but it's really hard for me to do that, because that is crazy. I'm not the only one who thinks that, am I? Sam Jackson pops up here for a brief cameo, his first role in a Tarantino-written film, and he's taken out almost immediately by an unrecognizable Gary Oldman. That's going to be a running theme throughout True Romance. This movie has a stacked cast, but man, do a lot of the best performers here go out really quick. Like Sam Jackson, for instance. He gets a really memorable monologue about eating something, and then he's immediately taken out by Gary Oldman, which is impactful, but also I didn't like that because I wanted Sam Jackson to come back. I wanted him to give more monologues about eating something. However, Gary Oldman is almost unrecognizable in this movie. The makeup and wig on him is fantastic, and his acting style is completely different from anything I've seen him in prior to this movie. Slater, instead of asking for Arquette's father's blessing in their marriage, does the honorable thing after getting married and tries to free his wife from her pimp. Which is exactly what you would do in a normal situation. He gets brutally beaten, though, in the fight scene with him and Gary Oldman. It's shot decently well. It doesn't look the best, but man, is it brutal. I watched the theatrical cut for this review. I was going to watch the director's cut too. Didn't end up having time, so I looked up the changes from the director's cut to the theatrical cut. It seems like a lot of shots of some violent stuff got taken out for the theatrical cut, but man, this beatdown of Slater is just as, if not even more brutal than I have ever seen in a Tarantino-written movie. Oldman continues his fantastic performance right up until he gets shot. And I'm like, damn it! You kill Sam Jackson for Gary Oldman, which, okay, Gary Oldman's giving a fantastic performance here, and then you kill Gary Oldman. What are you doing, movie? I killed him. Do you want a hamburger? I'm fucking starving to death. Right. Because right after I kill a man, the first thing on my mind is, where can I get a hamburger? Another big star then makes his first appearance in this movie. It's Dennis Hopper. He's playing Christian Slater's dad. Odd. They don't look anything alike. But man, does Dennis Hopper give a great performance here, though. He plays the fatherly role super well, especially when he starts chiding Slater for basically abandoning him for the last 3 years. After Slater and Arquette leave Hopper in his gross motorhome, crazy that on a cop's salary, Hopper still lives in a motorhome, they then end up in like this phone booth thing, and there's a really, I'm going to use the word hot to describe it, relations happen in the phone booth. And the soundtrack there was really good. The soundtrack throughout the entire movie is actually really good. Do you like that segue? Keeps every scene upbeat and moving, especially during the phone booth relations scene. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. Christopher Walken's introduction into this movie is fantastic. He gives the best performance in this entire movie. That dialogue between him and Hopper is electric, and this is the best scene in True Romance. It doesn't involve Christian Slater or Patricia Arquette. Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken just talking to each other, and it is the energy and tension in that scene is palpable. Although, and here's another frustration, Dennis Hopper is killed in that scene. To be fair, Dennis Hopper's no Sam Jackson or even Gary Oldman in this movie, but it was really nice to see him, and he gets shot by Christopher Walken. And then, to add insult to injury, Christopher Walken doesn't make another appearance throughout this movie. He is only in this one scene, which is both good and bad. From a good perspective, Walken doesn't get any other chance to fuck up his performance. He is extremely memorable because he's only in that one scene. And at least to me, I thought about him for the rest of the movie. It's bad because I want to see more of Walken. I want to see more of this performance. I would risk him fucking up his performance to be able to see more of this Sicilian mob boss character that he's portraying here. When Slater shot Gary Oldman, he stole a giant suitcase of what turns out to be cocaine. He thought it was Patricia Arquette's clothes. No, it's a bunch of coke. And Slater actually has a pretty good idea here. He decides to pawn off all of that coke and basically retire with Patricia Arquette. One transaction, one payment, years of cash to spend wherever you want. It's literally the perfect crime. $200,000 was worth a lot more in 1993 than it is now. You'd be able to retire for maybe, I don't know, 6 months, a year at the most, with that kind of salary. Maybe 2 years if you stretch it. I keep calling Slater throughout this movie, but his character's name is Clarence, and I should probably say that Patricia Arquette's name is Alabama, referred to lovingly as Bama throughout the movie. But Clarence meets up with his potential client on a roller coaster. That's so random and could only happen in something that was written by Quentin Tarantino, and I love it. We move on to another really tense scene where the character Virgil shows up at the Safari Inn, which is the place where Clarence and Alabama are staying for their supposed honeymoon. and corners Alabama in her hotel room with a giant shotgun. I kept thinking, hey, Virgil looks like James Gandolfini. I couldn't shake the feeling, damn, that looks a lot like James Gandolfini. I guess I wasn't paying attention to the opening credits, because then I searched up the cast list, and I'm like, son of a bitch, that is James Gandolfini. Tony Soprano is here. Very nice to see you, sir, and what a great performance he gives. The bathroom fight with Tony Soprano and Alabama is particularly brutal. The action isn't overly stylized here, it's more real and slow. Alabama gets the shit beat out of her, and it takes a while for her to finally take out James Gandolfini. Very valid point from a character named Elliot in this movie, who gets caught by the police after he's doing coke in his car, and has to become an informant for them. The police officers, played by Chris Penn and Tom Sizemore. Nice to see you guys here. Feature a former Tarantino alumni with Chris Penn, and a future one with Tom Sizemore. Anyway, back to the point. So what happens if he does something that you can't hear? Like he pulls out a gun and points it at my fucking head. Valid point from Elliot. How would the cops know that? Climax of the movie is really fun. With all of these elements coming together, it feels really satisfying. The cops trying to bust all of these drug smugglers, mobsters trying to get a good deal on coke, Bob from Good Luck Charlie talking about how he fucking hates cops, and a classic Mexican standoff. So originally, in my notes, I had written, who is this guy who appears to Clarence in the bathroom? Is it supposed to be a cooler version of himself? And with the help of Now Playing Podcast, after hearing their review of True Romance, this is supposed to be Elvis. Think about it. Clarence is a huge fan of Elvis. He talks about him throughout the entire movie. Hell, the opening scene is him saying he'd fuck Elvis if he was still alive. The way that this weird thing inside of Clarence's head is portrayed, it's Elvis. He's wearing flashy outfits. He talks like, hey, baby, Clarence, you know I love you, baby. And think about the only place that this guy appears to Clarence. It's in the bathroom. Where did Elvis die? In the bathroom. I can't remember which host it was on Now Playing that put those puzzle pieces together, but I think it was Jacob or Stuart. So if Jacob or Stuart ever hears this, you guys helped me figure that out, and you should get full credit for that. But that was hilarious after I thought about it. I was like, no, this isn't a cooler version of Clarence. It's his idol. Of course. Because Clarence is mentally ill. It is tragic, though, when Slater gets shot during the climax. All that guy wanted was to spend the rest of his life with the woman that he loved, and the movie faked me out. I thought he was dead. And turns out, after reading some interviews with Tarantino and Tony Scott, Clarence was supposed to die at the end of this movie. The studio execs made Tarantino change it. Actually, I think everyone was supposed to die here. Patricia Arquette was supposed to die. Chris Penn was supposed to die. Nobody was going to make it out of here alive. It was going to be another Reservoir Dogs. Instead, though, we get a happy ending where Christian Slater now wears a pirate eye patch, and he and Patricia Arquette have a kid named Elvis. This ending I have a couple issues with. Primarily the one being that Slater should have died, okay? This is supposed to be a tragic story about how some guy finally finds love, and then all of a sudden he's taken out instead of her. It would have been cliche if she would have been shot, but this would have subverted expectations. Plus that wound, I mean, Slater is pretty much shot in the head. Typically you don't survive that. I would have liked this more if Slater had died. It would have been more tragic, yes, it would have been a Reservoir Dogs type thing, but that's part of what makes Reservoir Dogs so good. You don't watch that movie hoping that everybody makes it out alive. You want them to die because they're terrible people. And Christian Slater, he's not a terrible person, but he's trying to do some not great stuff. But does that warrant death? This movie argues it doesn't. I would also argue that no, it doesn't warrant death, but that's part of what tragedy is. I don't watch Revenge of the Sith hoping that Anakin doesn't turn to the dark side. I watch it because he turns. That tragedy makes that story more interesting, and I think that could have worked a hell of a lot better here. True Romance is a fun movie about a couple that instantly falls for each other and ends up in the wrong crowd. But for a movie titled True Romance, there is not a lot of romance that comes out of this movie. It is weak at best. There's a lot of leaps in logic that you have to give this movie in order to accept its story and its main characters. Slater and Arquette have great chemistry, but I don't know them outside of, hey, these guys love each other. It's circumstantial love at best, and I don't care much for their characters outside of that. There's a lot of memorable lines here and a really good performance by both of these actors, but Clarence and Alabama are not a couple that you should strive to be. This is not one of the greatest cinematic couples of all time. This is not a Han and Leia romance. This is a weak one at best. The rest of this cast is great, and I find the story really interesting. I just wish that instead of moving focus away from the romantic side to the drug smuggling side, you should have, I don't know, balanced it out a little bit more. Maybe had more romance and cut back a little bit on the drug smuggling, because you completely removed the romance part of True Romance and it leaves me feeling cold. I like True Romance and I really like this cast. There's a lot here that I really liked about this movie, and I'm gonna say, yes, you should watch it. But man, I couldn't help but feel a little bit disappointed by it. I had heard True Romance hyped up as one of the greatest things that Tarantino has ever written. It's not. It pales in comparison to Reservoir Dogs. I am so glad that Tarantino made Reservoir Dogs first, because if he came out of the gate with True Romance, I don't know how successful his career would have been. To be fair, though, if Tarantino had directed True Romance and not just written it, I feel like it could have been better, because his style of directing is sorely lacking here. Number 4, where should you pick this product up? Well, same answers as number 1. And number 5, what price should you pay? Well, I got my Blu-ray copy from Half Price Books, as I mentioned earlier, and I got it for $20. So I literally got it for half price. If you can find the Arrow video copy of True Romance, doesn't matter if it has the hard box or the posters or anything, if you can just find the Arrow video Blu-ray or 4K, I would go upwards of like 20 to 25 for that, because it's the best version of this movie that you're ever going to watch. Plus, you get both cuts. The 4K, though, I haven't seen pop up a lot on the secondary market. I might not have been looking enough, though. Probably, it's a 4K from a boutique label, so people are going to charge out the butt for that because they think it's worth a lot. Probably around 30 to 35, I'd say, would be worth for that. DVDs, VHS tapes, I don't really. You guys know I don't give value to those. I was a lot harsher here on True Romance than I thought I would have been. I was so excited for this movie, and I left feeling a little bit disappointed. I was a little bit let down. Maybe this is going to be a Reservoir Dogs thing. When I first saw that movie, I was let down by that. I didn't like it. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll watch True Romance again. I'll reset my expectations, and maybe I'll like it more. Maybe I was too overhyped for it. Maybe I heard too much praise. I don't really know, but something about True Romance, the romance part, didn't click with me. And the fact that they kept killing off some of their best actors here, okay, that really made me mad. And then their best actor, Christopher Walken, only appears in one scene. That also made me mad. It's a petty reason, I know, but I wanted to see more Walken. I wanted more of that mob boss character. Alas, I'm stuck with only one and great scene. Well, folks, we have reached the end of the home media review for True Romance. It is now time to bid adieu to my half of Season 6 of Home Media Reviews. Next week, we start Hope's half of this season. And I was nice. I decided that I would give her the multiple movie episode here in this season. Ooh, the multiple movie episode Hope gets to pick. Ooh, I wonder what it's going to be. Is it going to be the Pitch Perfect trilogy? Is it going to be the Twilight movies? What's it going to be? Well, if you know anything about Hope, you know one of her favorite movies is a animated Disney movie from the early 2000s that has seen a bit of a resurgence in the last few years. A lot of people are starting to rediscover this movie and see just how hilarious it is. it also got a direct-to-DVD sequel. I think y'all know where I'm going here. Next week, we're covering The Emperor's New Groove and Kronk's New Groove. I've seen The Emperor's New Groove, have not seen Kronk. So that's going to be interesting for me, and hopefully for you guys as well. Thank you all so very much for watching. I will see you all then. Good night, everybody.